wake up with a smile, and then in a while come to lunch with the ladies. Lunch with the ladies. Lunch with the ladies. Lunch with the ladies.
Welcome to the Libby Show, Lunch with the Ladies. Today, we have a special interview. Have you ever heard of the Rehearsal Club in New York City? It's a residence that housed women aspiring for a career in entertainment and the arts, and it's experiencing a rebirth now. The book, Cinderellas of West 53rd Street, Stories from the Legendary Rehearsal Club, is now available online and as an audiobook and chronicles the fascinating lives of many of its members. Denise Pence Boockvor, Dottie Belle, Christopher Callen, Diane J Findlay, and Gale Wilson Patron. We'll take a step back in time and hear about just what it was like to live there, and how the women of the legendary Rehearsal Club in New York City are still inspiring the young women of the 21st century.
Today, I am talking to some of the alums of the legendary Rehearsal Club of New York City. They are Denise Pence, Dottie Belle, Christopher Callen, Diane J Findlay, and Gale Patron. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome.
Yes, it's lovely to be here.
These women and all those who grace the halls of the Rehearsal Club are strong and inspiring women who left their homes to pursue a dream in entertainment in a big city where nothing comes easy now and especially decades ago. If you are not familiar with the Rehearsal Club, in addition to the amazing ladies we have on the show today, the alum are all accomplished women, including such names as Carol Burnett, Kim Cattrall, Sandy Duncan, Diane Keaton, Audrey and Jane Meadows, Shirley Booth, Cynthia Darlow, and many more. In the foreword to the book, Cinderellas of West 53rd Street, Stories from the Legendary Rehearsal Club, alum Blythe Danner wrote, "I can't remember how I discovered the Rehearsal Club, but what a godsend it was. Comfortable, single, double, or even triple bedroom quarters elicited a huge sigh of relief, and we wore smiles on our grateful faces for the most delicious meals that were lovingly whipped up by the fabulous cooks we were lucky to have in the basement kitchen. The Rehearsal Club reminded me of the wonderful old film Stage Door, where dancers bounded up and down stairs, opera singers warbled scales, and actors practiced their lines. We'd send one another off with a hearty cheer of break a leg for going on auditions or for opening night." Thank you, Blythe, for that. And that's just the beginning of this book. We'll hear all about this book and more on this episode, but first, some introductions of our Cinderellas. Dottie Belle performed all over the world for 2 decades as a roster Rockette, and now serves on the Rockette Alums Board of Directors. She is a summa cum laude graduate of the University of Cincinnati. She now owns her own business, Fitness Forever, as a health fitness specialist, while continuing to kick eye high whenever the opportunity arises. Christopher Callen is a Renaissance woman who has garnered notoriety as a professional singer, dancer, writer, sculptor, and painter. She has starred in 12 shows on Broadway, over 50 movies, 100 commercials, and 2 soap operas. Christopher has lived, worked, or traveled to 41 countries and is an activist for peace and human rights. As such, she supports and is a spokesperson for Citizens Commission on Human Rights. Triple threat Diane J Findlay is still going strong in the world of show business in film, stage, and cabaret. Most recently, starring opposite Austin Pendleton in the indie film Bowl and Vase, appearing in the Amazon Prime series Dead Ringers with Rachel Weisz, and performing live on Broadway at 54 Below and Broadway Bound 6 in New York City. Gale Patron lived at the Rehearsal Club from 64 to 66. Her professional career has encompassed arts production, performing, direction, and administration. She has enjoyed being involved in the TRC Alum Association, and she's currently the president of the organization. And last but not least, the lady that put this show together, Denise Pence. Former Broadway gypsy and guiding light daytime drama star Denise Pence most recently served as executive producer for Boockvor Productions, bringing Bear Manor Media on board to publish the Cinderella book, and now the Cinderella audiobook, which drops February 2024 through Blackstone. She is forever grateful to the army of Rehearsal Club women and the network of Cinderella friends, without whom this mini miracle of a book would never have happened. So ladies, thank you for being here. I have so many questions. We're going to find out about the club. We're going to find out about you guys, what you're doing, what the plans are for the club, and so many fun things. Denise, the book Cinderellas of West 53rd Street, Stories from the Legendary Rehearsal Club was your baby. What a huge undertaking. And what a treasure trove of stories you have in there. Engaging, interesting, and inspirational. They're not just a glimpse into the history of entertainment, but also of New York City and the rise of females, which is something that is near and dear to my heart. And what I also appreciate is that so many of the alums are still active, which is not surprising, given the inward strength that all of these women had to risk everything and move to New York City. So, someone that's never heard of the Rehearsal Club, tell me about how it came to fruition, and then we're going to talk a little bit about your book. Denise, give us a little history of what the Rehearsal Club is.
Okay, well, in a nutshell, it was a safe haven for young theater women who were looking to come to New York. I considered all of our women pioneers. You know, it was like heading west, only we're going east. And none of us had money. That was, I think, the common denominator. We didn't have a network of anyone in the business, really, and we didn't have money. And when we found the Rehearsal Club, I don't know how a lot of other people found it, but I was told about it through my college. And I came to New York for a summer. I wasn't supposed to stay. And I, wrote a note to the house mother, and she got me into the club, which turned out to be like an amazing world of electricity. I remember walking in the front door and feeling the energy of all the talented people, and I was like, how do I stay here? That was like one of my first goals. But the Rehearsal Club closed in 1979. It started in 1913 and it existed until 1979, when New York City was in a bit of a fiscal crisis, and the Rockefellers pulled the funding and they closed the Rehearsal Club. And I have to say, I never really thought about the Rehearsal Club since then. I was living my life, and I'm sure most of us were. However, a very insightful one of our Cinderellas, Catherine Conry, was directing Stage Door, which you spoke about in the introduction. And Stage Door was written, apparently Edna Ferber moved into the Rehearsal Club incognito so that she could create those stories from all the women that she discovered lived at the Rehearsal Club, and she wrote Stage Door. So Kathy's directing Stage Door, and she put a note in the Equity newsletter wondering if other women who had lived in the Rehearsal Club were still alive and might come over and talk about the Rehearsal Club. That's how it all started. And that happened in 2006. And I didn't see the note. I didn't go to that first tea. However, Kathy was part of a production that I produced in August of 2006. And after this fabulous Circle of Friends performance, it was a one night only of wonderful, talented people. And Kathy said to me, "Did you ever live at the Rehearsal Club?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, but it's gone. Who cares?" And she said, "Well, we're kind of getting together. You want to come down?" And, I went to some meeting in the basement of her church, which was Metro Baptist on West 40th. And that church got an arm for theater, and they support a lot of theater. And we ended up as a group we would use their space for rehearsals and meetings and just a multitude of things that bonded all of us early on. And Blythe Danner actually came to one of those first meetings in the basement of a church. I was like shocked. But out of all of our coming together, we not only laid the foundation for this book, but we also inspired Charles Liepart to write music for us. And that's how Good Girls Only came about. So through the years, there's been little bits of creativity that have built the foundation that became this book. This is the first thing we've been able to publish. Charlie has finished the musical, but that's another multitude of money that needs to get out there. But we're so proud of making this book happen. You say it's my baby, but I had a multitude of sperm donors that created it along with everyone else. I don't want to ever take responsibility completely for this book because I couldn't have done it alone. And everyone involved, the women here for sure. Gail is one of our writers also. All of us contributed to making it what it is today. And it's not what it started out to be.
I understand that, and we're going to get to some of these stories because I can't wait to hear them from everyone. And it's just no surprise that with the level of creativity of the women living there and the ambition that something like this is happening. And we'll talk, I think Gail can address later what's going on now with the Rehearsal Club, which I'm excited to hear about. But I have one other question, and then I want to hear from all of you about your experience there. My question is, where did the word Cinderella come from?
Oh, that was coined by TV Guide, not my doing, but I really embraced it because I love the metaphor of Cinderella, not just for the prince, although some of us did find the love of our life while we were living at the Rehearsal Club. Certainly I did, 50 years now into marriage. So that was pretty awesome. And that was kind of my personal motivation for wanting to see this book happen, was to tell my story. And there's others that were Cinderellas, but the Cinderella metaphor for the brass ring of the theater, it's just perfect. I love the title. So
yeah, it's very catchy. And until you mentioned it in the interview the other day, I didn't even get the looking for the prince thing. So it's kind of fascinating to me also that people ended up finding their prince while they were living there, or because of it in some means. So now I want to hear from all you ladies. This is conversational, but I want to hear from every specific one of you. I just want to know a story, what it was like living there for you, the house, the camaraderie, the competition. I want to hear either a best memory, how it inspired you, a lesson you learned, a friendship you made, a milestone you reached because of it. I just want to bring these pages to life for me. I want to hear from all of you.
Hey, I'll start. May I start?
Diane, yes.
I showed up on the door of the Rehearsal Club in 1965, coming from a little town called Suffolk, New York, which is about an hour north of here. I'll never forget walking up those steps for the first time and walking in that place. It was just an air of being, it mesmerized me. The smell of the food, the ambiance, the kids, the energy, the joy, people running up and down the stairs. The telephone never stopped ringing. Is it your agent? Is it your boyfriend? Who is it? People vocalizing. It was the most alive place I have ever been in my life. And I thought, boy, did I make the right choice, because I love this and I want show business, which I always did. I think I came out singing and dancing. I was there for several months. I never made a best friend because I wasn't there long enough, and I was in Hello Dolly at the time, so I was extremely busy. But there was no competition there. At least I never came across any competition. In fact, I came across just the absolute opposite. I thought people went out of their way to help each other, went out of their way to give clothes to each other, to interchange. Just it was a sweet time. It was a very sweet time, and it sort of gave me a structure of kindness. I learned a lot of kindness there that I've never taken for granted, and I still use today as a word New Year's Eve, I said to myself, I'm going to practice kindness again this year because it's not easy. It's just not easy. But I did learn it there. I learned kindness. I learned being helpful and being um, joyous for someone that gets a show. You know, it's not easy. You're auditioning with my competition now would be all my friends. You know, they're all my friends, and you just have to be happy, be thankful, study, work hard, and that's what we all did there, and that's what I learned, and it was a priceless time.
Wow. And that's so good to hear because women rising each other up, we need more of that in the world. And it seems
We
like
sure
after this
do.
period of time, that's what people
Yeah,
are doing.
yeah.
Um,
Well, that's what it was.
yeah. A
Yeah,
quick
that's what it
question.
was.
Hello, Dolly. Did you have that secured before you moved there?
But actually, yes, I did, because that's in the book. That's a long story too.
Okay. Dottie,
Yes, hi, Susie.
tell me about your life at the
Yes, I'm
rehearsal
from
club.
Ohio originally, Ohio, and at the age of 18, I was in with my teacher and other students at attending the Dance Masters of America convention in New York City. My teacher was actually teaching as the teacher to teachers around the world. So we were like we were the Joettes, so we were taking classes, her students, and we were in competition. Well, one of the directors of the competition was Violet Holmes, the director of the Rockettes. Well,
Um,
unbeknownst to me, my teacher makes an audition for me through Violet. She says, I really have a talented student. Can you audition her? Well, I knew nothing about this. And like she was very busy teaching. Her mother was along. So my family were like, oh my, they didn't know about this. And when they did, oh, they were very upset. But anyway, her mother took me over to the audition. I disappeared for quite a long time on the 7th floor as a private audition. And you had to, meet your height requirement, your position, your body, your legs, how they look in all different directions. They were very strict about that. Auditioning in ballet, tap, and jazz, and singing. And she told me she had no positions at that time available because at that time you came in as a summer replacement. There were year-round shows at Radio City Music Hall. Well, she said, start college. I went home and stay in contact. Well, all of a sudden, June of 1974, I get a phone call and she talks to me. Have you been dancing? How's your on top of your craft? She says, I'm giving you a heads up. I may need you and I'll be calling you back. Well, it was about 5 days. She calls me back, speaks to my mother and says, bring her to New York. So we only went back to the hotel where we stayed down on 34th Street from the prior year. Well, the hotel manager remembered me. He had a cab driver take me around to look at residences. My mother said, oh, there's no way that she can live in an apartment. Back then, I was really quiet and shy. But anyway, so one of the residents at the very end was the rehearsal club. And I went in and Mrs. Clayton, the director of the rehearsal club, she was like, oh no, we have no rooms. And I go, I'm only 2 doors over. I've got to start rehearsals really soon. I know nothing about New York and I'm really destitute. Well, she says, we really have nothing. And I thought, this looks like back home, the historical house we have. It's only 2 streets over from Radio City and 2 meals a day provided. So I went back to my director and I said, oh, Violet, I have no place to live. She says, well, wait a second. I'm going to make a phone call. Well, I didn't realize the Rockefeller Foundation operated, the rehearsal club too. Well, I came back and they provided a room for me, but listen to this. I was upstairs on the 2nd floor, cavernous room facing 53rd. There were 2 twin beds. They brought a cot in for me to sleep next to the fireplace. Now, mind you, I am starting grueling rehearsals and 6 days a week, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. nonstop. And that's how but I was very grateful. And the women hardly saw me. I would eat my breakfast and just disappear. So when my show opened July the 4th, and believe it or not, I overslept that morning. And the Rockettes in the alley call, and luckily we had the phone downstairs when you came in, and there was always a rehearsal club lady taking notes or memos on the board for a phone call. So they yelled up to me, and my roommate, I was so exhausted. So I got up and they go, "You're needed." And so I know it was Francine Mancini, and she was in the room. We're very close. She's very much connected to the rehearsal club. And they got me ready, 1, 2, 3. I ran over to Radio City. The alley team, the Rockettes, they got me ready, bang, on that stage. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this empty theater of 6,000 people. It really does look big. But anyway, that started 4 shows a day, 7 days a week performing, 5 consecutive weeks without a day off. And I had a pact with my family that I would fly home on those 6 days. Then I had to come back, learn my new position in line, and start that 5-week rotation again. But the rehearsal club ladies were really very like a team effort, and they looked out for one another. But it was really funny. There's a little story about our room. When you went from our room, you went into the closet, and in the corner, there was a little wash basin. So many times, there was one bathroom for all of us at the end of the hall. Well, that would be occupied. Well, I had to get to work. So sometimes I would just sponge off in that little closet wash basin and fly over to Radio City, and knew I could take a shower there. But, it was very unique. And then they had a shadow box on the wall, and we would open that and we could peek through and talk to, like Joanne DeCarlo was over there. And it was really unique about just how the rehearsal club had all this mystery to it.
What is a shadow box?
It's a square and like wood, and it had a handle. You would open, like you couldn't see through, but when you opened it, there was a little hole to look through, and you could see the next room. And we would go, Joanne, are you there? And then she'd come up and look too.
You had me, aside from the shadow box, I heard how great the food was, but you said one bathroom?
Yeah. One bathroom at the end of the hall for all the women on that floor. Yes.
How many years were you a Rockette?
25. Yes.
Wow.
1974. Yes. I went through major corporate takeovers there, about 4. I worked for the current owner, Mr. Jim Dolan of MSG. So a lot of choreographers, a lot of radical changes. I was there. I'm, for the first African-American lady, the Setsuko Murahasi, the first Asian next to me, the first Hispanic girl, but we all got along. I also in 1979, when the rehearsal club was closing, Radio City was closing, the Rockettes were disbanding. And we were going out in teams, the Rockettes, and with our petition boards, 3 in a team, we would walk on 6th Avenue from 50th to 53rd and go up to the public and say, are you aware that the Radio City's closing, the Rockettes are disbanding? Could you please help us by signing our petition? And almost everybody didn't know. And at the same time, the rehearsal club was closing. So much going on at that time in New York too.
Yeah, well, it's back and better than ever. I love the show. And I also have to add, I saw the clip from the Letterman show.
Oh, that's a favorite of mine. Oh, that's something I was going to mention later on.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, I remember seeing it because I'm a big fan of late night, and I remember that.
Really? You remember that? Oh, that was interesting. That. Yeah, and that was all ad lib. We had no rehearsal.
We're going to go on to Christopher now.
Hello. Okay, so I was not able to be in the book itself because I didn't get it in on my story in the deadline. And Denise and Gail were just so sweet because they put my story in the newsletter for the rehearsal club. And it just meant the world to me. And I was kind of like Denise, like I went to the rehearsal club. I loved it. It was great. It was formative. It was helpful. It was, who knows what my life would have been if I hadn't been there. Very different, I'm sure. But I didn't think anything of it until I was approached about my story and write my story. And then I just really loved it, and I've grown to know some of the other women who were there. And I like Diane. I was not there for a long time, but it was very.
How long?
I arrived right after I knew, like I'm on a mission. I started singing. My family lived in Japan, and I started singing with a band there. And out of that, I started to learn Japanese, and I was asked to be on movies and television there. So I got somewhat of a professional start. But my father got very ill. So at age 17 and a half, we had to come back. I come from a very large Irish Catholic family. I left my home, and out the door you go, and you cannot look back. There's no money for you. There's lots of emotional support, but not much else, and meaning nothing. So it was great. I was on my own by 17.
Wow.
I went to San Francisco State. I got a degree in drama. I was going to be a nun prior to that for many years. I thought that's where, because I felt I wanted to make a difference. And that's the other thing I've learned about most performers. They really want to make a difference. That's why they do it. And I really get angry when I see things that are written about actors or singers about being very stuck up and narcissistic, because my experience is the exact opposite. But anyway, I'm going off the rails here. No. So I was on a mission. I had a former roommate, Carrie Slattery, who had gone to New York. She left San Francisco State and she went to New York, and we had stayed in touch. And somehow, I don't know, she arranged for me to have a room. She spoke for me, so I had somewhere to go, because I would not have had anywhere to go. So I sold my Volkswagen Bug for $300. I took $150. I bought a one-way ticket to New York. That's all I had. It was $150 and $27.63 in my bank account.
Is that the title of your story?
Well, On a Mission is the name, because I did feel like that was my calling. It is my mission. It is my goal, to try to be a light in the world. That's what we do.
Right.
So I arrived, and my story does tell that first day. Because just like Diane, like I came from San Francisco, but my family live in the rural town of Rio Vista, like nothing's there. And I thought San Francisco was a city, but no, when I arrived in New York in the cab, I'm looking, like, oh my God, this is a city. And I remember going up the stairs, the same thing, carrying my bags up. And I believe Carrie met me. She said she was on the road, but I think she met me and then she left. And I love it that Dottie talks about the Rockettes, because Carrie showed me around, and like Diane, it's like, oh my God, this place is amazing. And the phone is ringing and the people are running up, and just like you said. And then it was around dinner time. So I put my things in my room, which I shared with two other people. Same thing, that long kind of railroad flat that we had. And it was the 5th floor, I believe, and I was under the window in the front. So that was good. Carrie took me downstairs, and to my amazement, there were 5 Rockettes standing there with their meal trays. And it was like, oh my God. I mean, I was so starstruck. And there they were, and as you know, Dottie, you have a very extreme makeup for that big house. Yeah. So they had these big eyelashes, and, everything was exaggerated. And I just thought, oh my God, this is where I'm meant to be. It was wonderful. And then I had a very unusual experience in New York. And I feel like a little bit of a poster child for younger actors and actresses to know that it does not have to be a struggle. I didn't struggle. Once I got there, I was in the right place at the right time, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I, like you, Diane, I was out the door. I did not sit around. I was out the door. I had, all these auditions that were in the paper, and I went to every single one, if it was even minutely something I could do. And that's
Agreed.
kind of stayed with me. That's why I still work. I have friends who say, you're the hardest working actress in show business, because you got to keep putting it out there. You have to just keep moving. But anyway, within 8 weeks, I was on Broadway. My first show was at City Center. I understudied the lead in Brigadoon.
Wow.
And then the director, Gus Shermer, he was a manager and he took me on. And then he helped me get my first agent, which was William Morris.
Oh,
Not
And
bad.
I also went from Brigadoon to go out on the road with Fiddler on the Roof. I was there for about a year. I played Huddle on the road. And I met my first boyfriend there. We were together for 5 years, not 50, but it was lovely. And then I came back, and my first show back was 1776. I took over for Betty Buckley in the original company. And then I worked with Tom Jones and Harvey Schmidt. That was amazing. And then I just went from show to show to show.
wow.
And I always did parts in every single one. And then the biggest part that I had was the leading lady in Revival of the Desert Song.
Wow.
And we were out in Kennedy Center for a number of months. They wanted to keep us longer. We were a huge hit in Washington, but I met the Fire Diva and the last king of Iran. We were presented. I mean, when you're in Washington there, they just treat you like you're a queen. So it was very interesting.
Wow.
Very interesting to see the machinations of Washington. Some not so good, but some okay. Anyway, and then I came back and I just kept going. And then I worked with Denise's husband, which was so fantastic, such a, full circle. And he was a doll. He was so kind to me in that show. And that was over here with the Andrews sisters and John Travolta, Mary Lou Henner, all those people. And then I was on a soap opera there in New York. I was there on One Life to Live in a role. That was the first thing I had done, but I did lots of commercials and voiceovers and everything while I was there. And then I met my husband in New York in a psychic healing class. And after 3 years, we wanted to have a family. We moved out. Stephen Sondheim had wanted me to come out to do something with his show, Side by Sondheim in San Francisco. So we said when that show was ended, we would go to Los Angeles and start to have a family, which we did. And we have, I'm divorced now, but we have a beautiful son who's a grown man.
You have an amazing story. And I think with everyone here, everyone's story could be a book or a movie or something like that.
Yeah.
That's why people need to read this book.
Yeah.
But something
Definitely.
Yeah, some things you said, talents. First of all, entertainment is very important to me. I mean, it got me through COVID. It gets me so many things when I'm feeling down. And I think people don't realize acting, singing, performing, it's entertainment, and the soul needs entertainment.
That's so beautiful. That's
yeah.
so true.
I'm going to go on to Gail, the president. I
Hi.
would like you to tell me a story about, what it was like living there. And also, while you're talking, can you also tell us about the reinvention of the Rehearsal
Absolutely,
Club?
sure. Let me start with that first. Thank you so much for having all of us, Susie. It's really a great opportunity. And I think it's to give a little context. Some of the women today are sitting in front of the cover of the book, which is, there's the cover of the book. This is where we lived. And, when you think about it, it's pretty amazing. It was 2 broken down old boarding houses on 53rd Street. And there was a bathroom on each floor. So there were many girls sharing many bathrooms. And believe me, the bathrooms themselves were not glamorous. There was a tub and there was a toilet, and that was about it. The Rehearsal Club housed about 40 odd people. It would go from 42 to 48, depending on the cots and the halls and the people who are coming and going. But, it nurtured the dreams of women starting over 110 years ago. And dreams are dreams, and they will always be the same, I think, in our civilization. They are all about humanity. Their dreams are about culture, and they are the most important catalyst of what carries our culture into the future. So all of the women who I admire all of the women here and at the Rehearsal Club so much because they were all very serious about their intention to go to New York, scared as the devil. Most people had no experience in New York, and no one had any money, absolutely no money. And all you had really were dreams, and some people had obviously inspired one of us to try it, to go for it, to go for that dream. That's and in the scariest business of them all, really. So all the women who arrived at the Rehearsal Club had tremendous amount of courage to just try it, because most women didn't and still don't. I mean, the odds of success, as we all know, are pretty grim.
Yeah.
So, but these girls, it was a sanctuary. And that's why we all arrived at this sanctuary together, and we just felt nurtured. We felt that it took a lot of that scariness away, because you were going to an audition that a lot of other people were going to, and you just shared your troubles, you shared your fears, you shared all that, and it was a great boost of confidence. And so, although of course the ones who have made it, the superstars that we all know about, Carol Burnett and Kim Cattrall, and some of the people right in this screen, that's a fraction of the superstars, but every woman that we have found in terms of the alums, they all pursued careers. If they weren't performing careers, they were careers in the arts, in allied careers, and the women were amazingly successful because of their dreams. That if they didn't become a superstar, they took those dreams and they found in something else that was creative. And so the Rehearsal Club is full of now people coming back who are writers and singers and dancers and creative people and artists, lots of artists and illustrators and all kinds of things, because that's what culture is all about, and these dreams coming true. So the revival. So as Denise said, the Rehearsal Club closed in 79, reopened. The group came together for the first time in 2006. And, those women, you can't stop a group like the Rehearsal Club women, because they just can't sit down and do nothing. They're going to do something. So, as the dream got bigger and bigger and more realistic, we then decided, well, do we want to get really serious about this and really revive the residency program with no money, no real estate? What do you think? And so the vote was, yes, let's try to become a nonprofit and see what we can do, because as I just said, dreams never change. The dreams of our residents today are the same dreams that we had 100 years ago. And what's so beautiful about these young girls is you see these girls, and now we're sort of performing together and working together. And the older women, the women who lived there in the past, have become mentors to the young women. And it's the most talk about giving back. It is the most beautiful dream come true to give back to these young women who have the same dreams that we have. And it's even harder now to make it in the business. And that's happening. So we're tiny little, and we're trying to grow, and hopefully the book will help a lot. Hopefully the audiobook as well. And we have lots of other plans. We now have reopened the residency, and we're trying to find, sustainable funding. I mean, we work at a terrible deficit, and we're begging and borrowing and stealing, to get rooms for our young women. And we don't have very many. We'd love to. I mean, it's the kind of thing that really should be nationwide, but it just doesn't happen in this country. There's nothing like the Rehearsal Club.
Right.
And this revival is kind of astonishing, because we have, in less than just about 2 years, we've supported over 22 women through voluntary help and voluntary gifts. And these women, some of them have already left to go off on their careers. Some of them have already left and come back, just like we all did in the old days, to come back and take up a room again. And so we'd love to have, we have a dozen residents. We'd like to have 100 residents, but again, it all relies on money and funding. So that's the bottom line.
And I know that John D. Rockefeller was responsible for the creation of the original Rehearsal Club. Hopefully you will find another benefactor or many benefactors that will help contribute to this. I do have a question. Do people still have to audition to get in?
They sure do. Now more seriously than ever, because we have such limited space and there is so much talent out there. It's just unbelievable. These women are so far ahead of where we were at the same age. These girls are triple threats, all of them, in song, dance, and acting, and they all come pretty much with terrific resumes. I mean, we'd like to be able to open the doors to the people who've never even been able to go to college because they couldn't afford it, but we're not in. Unfortunately, we're not in that situation. We need women who have had some experience, who really know what they want, are really committed and serious to performing arts careers. And then they go through a process. It's all on our website, rehearsalclubnyc.com. And there's a whole section for the residency, and they fill out applications, and there are different levels of applicants. And if you get through the first round, you don't have to pay anything in the beginning. You just make an application. Then you have to pay a little bit of a fee to go to the next stage. And then we do look at photographs. We need a written application and a treatise about why you want to live at the Rehearsal Club, which all of which are just break your heart. They're so beautiful. And then we also need video reels and so on, and through the audition process. And we have a team of people who vet all of these women, and then we select who gets to come in, tough stuff, because they're all fabulous. They should all get in, but we can't do that. But we have a waiting list, and people are more encouraged to get on the waiting list, because you never know when someone's going to get a gig somewhere and leave. So that's what we're doing now.
You said it was harder, so it's harder in different ways. I think in the many years ago it was harder because there was only a phone call. If you missed that phone call, now it's harder because everyone is auditioning via Zoom for the same part. So
absolutely. Yeah, the dynamics are different, but the intent, the commitment, and the talent is just as fabulous as it was 100 years ago. And these women just deserve a crack at it. That they deserve their one chance to go out there and go for it. So that's what we're so excited to be able to provide.
Well, that's just wonderful. And I hope it grows and grows. And in 50 years from now, there's another book.
Oh, yes, we need some Rockefellers out there. We do, lots of them.
Anyone watching?
Yes, really.
Well, I'm going to go to Denise now. Tell me about your experience
at the Rehearsal
Club.
I want to do a PS on Gale's future of the Rehearsal Club, because my goal too with Gale's trying to look for a new benefactor, the Rockefellers donated those two brownstones to us for $1. So they were, and they were great brownstones. He was trying to make midtown Manhattan into keeping a neighborhood as opposed to the high-rise businesses that are there now. And this is my thing that I keep putting out. We need another Rocky, because the focus for Gale having to raise so much money to sustain these young people, it's a job. It's a huge job. And I don't feel that we as entertainers have that part of the head. Gale has created an amazingly unique, talented group of women that understand all of that. They know how to go after the money. They know how to
build, how to try.
Right? And me, I'm like, I had breakfast with a young girl the other day who came in from Israel, a fabulous dancer. And the first thing I said was, go to the rehearsalclub.com and fill out the application and use my name and try to get yourself in there so that you can have a base like the rest of us had. Because I find that the golden ticket for the Rehearsal Club, which gave you a base that you didn't have to worry about your meals or where you're going to sleep at night, and it's safe and you're protected. All of that was so important. And I can't believe that we don't have it in New York, in Manhattan, not Brooklyn, not Queens, not New Jersey, Manhattan. And I would love to see that manifest. Meanwhile, while Gale's doing all that work, I'm doing the work to put us back on the stage. The old Alta Cockers here. What are we? We're the living in life at a, what is your
You're the
moniker?
Libbies.
You're Libbies.
Yeah.
Trying to give us platforms to stay in the business. All of us still love the business, and we're doing what we're impassioned to do.
Yes, you're looking for parts for all these other wonderful women, and this is just part of the problem in entertainment, generally speaking, that there are not enough parts for women, and especially women over a certain age.
Well, I think that's changing. It's interesting because I know when I went gray on Twitter, I watched the transitions on Madison Avenue. They started hiring women with gray hair to opposite a man with gray hair. I mean, forever we had to dye our hair, and the man was gray. And now women are able to be who they are and not necessarily have to, keep dyeing your hair to look something else. I'm au natural. I haven't even cut my hair since COVID. So it's like, I'm like, this is my life, my particular life. And I keep thinking, well, okay, if I work, I can always wear a wig. And that's my solution to character.
Yeah.
But as far as the rehearsal club's concerned, the women of the rehearsal club, I feel, were like an anchor for me because I haven't worked. I am so envious, Christopher, of all the work that you're getting out in California. I don't have an agent. I haven't had an agent really since Guiding Light. So my opportunities are something that I've had to make for myself. And all of the women of the rehearsal club have helped all of us make and create opportunity, which has always been like something that throws the ball somewhere else. And like even the 110th anniversary, Gail had talent up on the stage, young and old. And that gave everyone an opportunity to showcase.
And I think that's something extra special that the rehearsal club could offer now, because when all of you were there weren't an older group of alums that could share their experience and help. So now it's another reason to stay there.
It's giving back.
Yeah.
Giving back.
The women that that were on the board of directors, which Gail's grandmother was president of the original rehearsal club. What was her name? Wilson?
Yeah, Germaine Wilson. She was French. She was president for 12 years and was on the board for 35 years. Just amazing.
Yeah. So, and a lot of the women that were on the board of directors were wives who were wives of politicians who had power and money.
Powerful New Yorkers.
Yeah. So that's kind of what Gail, I believe, is trying to create with the board of directors, where we influential people that can help lift everything up.
Well, I have a great idea of, and I hope the viewers also have a great idea of what the rehearsal club was about. Thank you for sharing your stories, and they are all in the book, Cinderellas of West 53rd Street. Go get a copy or listen to the audiobook. And with that, I just want to thank you all for being here. And I wish you all lots of luck. Keep doing what you're doing, dreaming what you're dreaming. And I hope that the rehearsal club just grows in leaps and bounds.
Thank you.
I'm going to sign off with what I usually say, and that's every day, find some joy and give some joy. Thanks for being here.
Wake up with a smile